The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, traveled in one night, crossing the stars and galaxies from the earth to the heavens. Now Allah Almighty has mentioned in the Quran that everything between the heavens and the earth prostrates to him. That means all stars, galaxies, planets, mountains and trees all prostrate to Allah. But how is this possible? Prostration happens like this. And has anyone ever seen stars and planets prostrate as we do? Yet Allah Almighty has repeatedly mentioned in the Quran that all things worship Him. So, there must be something common among all these things in the universe. Many years ago, the whole world believed that the Earth was the center of the universe. The Earth did not move. But 400 years ago, an Italian scientist, Galileo, aligned two lenses and realized that doing so allowed distant objects to be seen up close. Such telescopes already existed in the world, but they were only used for military and maritime purposes. However, Galileo improved this telescope and, for the first time in human history, directed it towards the sky. Because of this, he observed the Sun, the Moon for the first time from Earth, and closely observed Jupiter. Galileo began observing the movements of these planets. If 1,300 Earths are combined, they make one Jupiter. Galileo saw that it was round, like the other planets, but the light on Jupiter completely changed on different days of the month. He also observed that Venus and Saturn were in the same state. All of this was possible only if these things revolved around the Sun and not the Earth. Galileo shared this with the world, saying that the Earth is not the center of the universe, but the Sun is. Upon hearing this, all the churches in Europe became his enemies, because at that time, the Pope believed that the Earth was the center. It was not only the Pope's belief, but the whole world thought so. For this reason, the Church punished Galileo to live under house arrest for the rest of his life. But Galileo continued his work, and later, the whole world accepted his findings. Even the Pope, 350 years after Galileo's death, apologized to the world, admitting they were wrong, and Galileo was right. Gradually, we learned that the Earth is part of the universe, not the center, and that it revolves around the Sun. And the Sun itself is not that large, but merely a small part of the Milky Way galaxy, which contains billions and trillions of stars like it. All these billions of stars revolve in one circle. We revolve around the Sun, but around what do billions and trillions of stars revolve? A supermassive black hole. This black hole, which is 4 million times larger than our size, has kept the entire galaxy in a circular orbit, just as our Sun has kept the Earth, Jupiter, Mars, and all these planets in an orbit. But even this galaxy is not that big. It is a small part of a cluster of thousands of galaxies. These thousands of galaxies form a cluster, and this cluster itself is not that big, but part of a supercluster, which consists of thousands of such clusters. And thousands of these superclusters exist. Now you notice that one thing is common among all these stars, galaxies and planets. Everything in this universe revolves around something else. When the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, also ascended to the heavens, he saw the angels praying in the Bayt al-Mamur, and they too were revolving around something. But what does revolving have to do with worship? Allah has said that all these things worship Him. Do you know in which surah Allah mentioned this? In Surah Al-Hajj. In Hajj, Muslims from all over the world go to the holiest site of Islam, the Kabbah, and circumambulate it repeatedly. Now what does this circle mean? When a Muslim circumambulates the Kabbah, he is not revolving alone, but the moon, planets, stars, and galaxy clusters are all participating in the same worship. These things do not worship as we do. Instead, when we go to Mecca, we worship as they do. But in this verse it is written that all these things prostrate to Allah. Prostration does not only refer to our physical prostration, it can also mean following Allah's command. But in this verse, Allah has not only mentioned stars, galaxies and planets, but also mountains, trees and animals. They do not all move in circles. Thousands of years ago, in Greece, the concept arose that everything in the universe is made of the smallest particle, the atom. This concept was forgotten for 2,000 years, but 200 years ago research on it resumed. Through the research of science students, it was revealed that the atom is not the smallest particle. It contains other particles like protons, neutrons, and electrons. Protons and neutrons are always in the center of the atom, and electrons always revolve around them, just as planets revolve around the sun and stars revolve around black holes. This means that everything in the universe, from the smallest atom to the largest entities like planets, stars, galaxies, and even the angels in Bait al-Mamur, is revolving around something, whether they want to or not. When a Muslim goes to perform tawaf around the Kabbah, he joins the same worship from the smallest particles like electrons to the largest entities in the universe. Perhaps this is why performing tawaf is the greatest act of worship in Islam. So, when Allah mentioned in Surah Al-Hajj that all these things worship Him, they do not worship as we do. Instead, by performing tawaf of the Kaaba in Mecca, we worship as they do. But all their revolving has an appointed time.
Subscribe.